You ever really think about breathing? Like we just do it, right? But imagine if you had to, I don't know, make oxygen to survive, like on Mars. Kind of puts things in perspective. And that's the kind of headspace we're going for today with this deep dive.
Makes you appreciate Earth.
Big time. So we're tackling this book, Pricing Positive Externalities.
By Michael Testa.
Right, him. Chapters 1, 2, 4. It's a lot, but we're focused on this idea. Can markets actually solve huge problems, not just, cause them?
It's a provocative question for sure. Testa makes a strong case.
He does. And the whole Mars thing, wild, right? Like he's got this whole oxygen exchange system, MOES. Sounds like sci-fi, but it's making me rethink how we value stuff, even here.
Absolutely. Before we get too deep into Mars, though, maybe a quick intro for folks who haven't heard of Testa.
Yeah, good point. So who is this guy, and why should we listen to him?
Well, he's an economist, but not the stuffy kind. He's been published in all the big journals. But this book, it's like he wanted people to understand this stuff.
Like applicable to real life, not just theory.
Exactly. He's tackling these environmental and social problems, but through this, market-based lens, it's fresh.
Okay, so not just some ivory tower guy. He wants to make a difference. I'm with you. But back to Mars. This oxygen exchange thing. Lay it on me.
All right, picture this. You're on Mars. Oxygen. It's not just there, you gotta make it.
Yeah.
So every bit is precious. Wasting it, not an option.
Yeah, stakes are kind of high, to say the least.
Exactly. And that's Tessa's point. This whole MOES thing, it's like a market for oxygen.
Wait, like you're buying and selling air?
Kinda. It's based on this cap and trade idea. Each colonist gets a set amount of oxygen credits.
Like their share?
Right. And the twist, if you're good at making oxygen, you can sell your extra credits to those who make more.
So it's like oxygen stocks. That's wild. But hold on, wouldn't people just hoard it? Like become oxygen barons?
That's where the cap comes in. There's a limited total number of credits, so it can't get out of control.
Ah, built-in scarcity. Clever.
Right. Plus, it drives innovation. If you figure out a way to, I don't know, make oxygen from Martian rocks or something, boom, you're the oxygen king. You can sell those extra credits.
So it's like saving the colony A&D getting rich.
Yeah.
Not bad.
Exactly. And Testa says the same idea could work for other stuff on Mars, too, like water, even carbon dioxide.
Wait, so like a whole Martian economy based on, what, breathing and drinking?
Think bigger. Imagine, like, a biodome. It's growing food, cleaning the air, and de-recycling water.
Multitasking biodome. Nice.
And get this, it'd be earning credits in all those markets. So you're not just surviving, you're thriving by being eco-friendly.
Okay, that's kind of cool. But back to reality for a sec. How do we even start designing something like this? Like, can we just copy-paste Earth stuff onto Mars?
Not quite. Testa calls it benchmarking. We use Earth systems as a starting point, but Mars, it throws some curveballs.
Right, because it's not exactly a tropical paradise.
Yeah.
So what kind of Earth systems are we talking? Like, are there real-world examples of this stuff already happening?
Oh, yeah, tons. Think about the European Union. They have this carbon market where companies buy and sell permits to pollute.
Polluting permits, that's a thing.
It is. Or look at Australia. They do water trading. Farmers can buy and sell their water allocations. So the idea's out there.
Interesting. But like you said, Mars is Mars. What kind of challenges are we talking about?
Well, for one, it's a completely different environment. Thin atmosphere, crazy temperatures. Our measuring sticks for, oxygen levels, water availability, they'd need to be adjusted.
Right, because what's normal here is deadly there. Makes sense.
Plus, the tech is a whole other beast. We might be able to adapt some stuff, but we're going to need some serious Martian innovation.
So it's not just about the rules. It's about pushing the boundaries of what's possible. That's kind of exciting. And daunting.
Definitely both. But then there's this even wilder idea Testa throws out. An interplanetary market.
Hold up, interplanetary? Like Earth and Mars doing business deals?
Yeah. It's in chapter 6.5. I kid you not. Imagine, a Martian biodome project. But it's funded by Earth investors, because it's also helping with, say, our carbon problem here.
Whoa. So what, sustainability becomes a two-planet thing?
Exactly. The exchange of resources, tech, it's mind-blowing.
Okay, my brain's officially fried. So it's not just about surviving on Mars, it's about rethinking how we do everything, right?
Right. This Martian thought experiment, it's really about how we value resources, how we incentivize good behavior. It applies everywhere.
Okay, so Mars is like a crash course in sustainability.
You could say that, but the real question is, how do we take these crazy ideas and make them work here on good old Earth?
Right, because Earth's got its own set of problems. Probably a few more than Mars, actually.
Yeah.
And that's where things get really interesting. Okay, so we've had our little Martian adventure. It's clear Tesla's got us thinking big. But how do we bring this back down to Earth? I mean, it's one thing to theorize about oxygen markets on a barren planet, but Earth, well, it's complicated.
No kidding. Testa actually dives into that, like head on. Several chapters are all about applying these principles to real-world Earth problems. And it starts with understanding the value of stuff we often take for granted, those positive externalities.
Right, you mentioned those before. Can you give me a real-world example, like something I can wrap my head around?
Sure, sure. Imagine a company, right? They decide to restore a wetland. Sounds pretty altruistic, maybe even good PR, but there's more to it. That restored wetland, it could filter pollutants out of the water, provide a home for endangered species, even help prevent flooding.
Okay, so it's not just about looking good, it's actually doing good.
Exactly. Those are the positive externalities, benefits that go way beyond just the company, impacting the whole community, the ecosystem. It's a ripple effect.
Ah, I get it, like win-win-win. But how do you actually put a price on those benefits? It's not like you can just slap a sticker on a wetland and call it a day.
That's the million-dollar question. Economists, policymakers, they've been wrestling with that for ages. How do you quantify something like clean air, biodiversity? Testa says we need better accounting systems, ones that actually factor in these natural assets.
So it's like changing how we define value. Not just dollars and cents, but the well-being of the planet, too.
Bingo. But then there's the next hurdle. How do you actually get companies to care about this stuff? They're not exactly known for their tree hugging, right?
True, it's usually profits first, planet later.
And that's where the market magic comes in. Testa talks about expanding things like carbon markets, but to include a wider range of those good deeds, those positive externalities.
Okay, so instead of just paying to pollute, they could earn credits for doing good stuff.
Precisely. Like, imagine getting rewarded for restoring wetlands, planting trees, cutting down on water usage. And those credits, they could be traded on a market, creating a financial incentive to be sustainable.
So it's like flipping the script. Instead of punishment, it's a reward system for being a good environmental citizen.
Right. But of course, there's got to be rules. Testa's not naive about that. He stresses the need for strong oversight, clear metrics. Otherwise, it's just greenwashing, companies gaming the system.
Yeah, good point. You need checks and balances or it all falls apart. But stepping back for a second, we're talking a lot about companies, markets. Where do WE fit into this, like regular people?
Testa's clear on this. Individual action, IS vital, but it's not enough on its own. We need systemic change. That means shifting both our values and our behaviors.
So it's like being mindful of the planet in our everyday choices.
Exactly. Like, think about it when you're shopping. How much is clean air worth to you? What about protecting the parks you love? Those choices might seem small, but multiply that by millions of people. It adds up.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
But let's be honest, changing human behavior, that's a tough one. We're creatures of habit. Convenience often wins over, like saving the planet.
True enough. Testa gets that. But he also believes we can change, especially when we see the big picture, the possibilities. He even dedicates a whole chapter to outlining specific actions for individuals, businesses, governments. It's a roadmap.
So it's not just theory. It's like, here's how you can make a difference.
Yep. But it's a massive undertaking, no doubt. Testa argues that the status quo, it's just not cutting it anymore. We've got climate change, biodiversity loss. We need bold solutions.
So it's not just about being nice to the planet, it's about survival.
In a way, yes, but it's not all doom and gloom. Testa believes we have the tools, the ingenuity. We just need the will.
I'm getting that. But what about the role of government? I mean, markets are great, but don't we need rules, regulations? Otherwise, it's the Wild West.
Absolutely. Testa isn't saying ditch the government. He recognizes the importance of setting standards, enforcing those rules, protecting the vulnerable. It's a partnership.
Okay, so it's not one or the other. It's both working together. But something else keeps popping into my head. What about the potential for these systems to be, like, exploited? Powerful people rigging the game.
That's a legitimate concern. Testa doesn't shy away from it either. He talks about transparency, accountability, ways to make sure things stay on track, constant vigilance.
So it's not just set IT and forget IT. You got to keep tweaking, adjusting, making sure it's working the way it's supposed to. But honestly, isn't this all a bit utopian? Creating this global system that rewards sustainability. It seems like a tall order, given, how things are right now.
It is ambitious, but Testa believes it's not just desirable, it's essential. He says we have the smarts, the resources. We need a mindset shift.
So it's not just about changing the system, it's about changing how we think about the system.
Exactly. And that leads us to the big question. Where do we even start? It all sounds great in theory, but how do we actually put this into action? And that's where things get really interesting. Because Testa has a plan.
A plan, huh? So we're not just, like, flailing around in the dark. There's an actual path forward. Okay, I'm listening. But what does that even look like? Is it super specific or more like guidelines?
It's both, kinda. Testa lays out these key principles, strategies, but he also gets that, every situation's different. The details got to be figured out as we go. But the first step, he says, is kind of surprising. We got to shift the narrative.
Shift the narrative. Okay, now you've really got my attention. What does that even mean? Like, are we talking about a PR campaign for planet Earth?
It's bigger than that. It's about, like, the fundamental story we tell ourselves. Right now, it's all about individual success, right? Economic growth, me first. Testa says we got to flip that. Emphasize collective well-being, responsibility to future generations, recognizing the value of a healthy planet just for existing.
So instead of asking how much money can I make, it's more like, what kind of world do I want to live in and leave behind for my kids' grandkids?
Exactly. That's the value shift that'll drive real change. Political will, investments, innovation, it all flows from that.
I get it. Sounds good on paper. But how do you actually shift a whole narrative? It's not like everyone's going to wake up tomorrow and suddenly agree on, like, the meaning of life, right?
It's a long game, for sure. But Testa says we can use the tools we already have. Think about art, music, storytelling, even just talking to people, having those tough conversations.
So use the power of culture to change the culture.
Right. Support organizations that are already doing this work, educate ourselves. And yeah, those dinner table conversations, the ones that make you think, those matter too.
So it's everyone, really. Artists, teachers, business leaders, politicians, we all have a role to play in shaping this new story.
Exactly. And that's what's so empowering about Testa's book. It's not just, here's the problem, good luck. It's, here's the vision, the plan, let's do this. It reminds us that we have the power to shape the future, both here and on Mars even.
Okay, I'm feeling a lot of things right now. Inspired, kind of overwhelmed, but definitely hopeful. This deep dive has really opened my eyes to, like, what's possible and the responsibility we all have.
I hear ya. It's easy to get caught up in the day-to-day, forget about the big picture, but Testa reminds us we're not just passengers on this planet, we're the crew. We're responsible for steering the ship.
Love that analogy.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up, if our listeners take away just one thing from this whole conversation, what should it be?
I'd say this. The problems we face here on Earth, they're connected to the problems we might face on Mars someday. And the solutions, they're connected too. If we can figure out how to thrive sustainably on both planets, well, that's a win-win for everyone.
Couldn't said it better myself.
Yeah.
Folks, if you found this conversation as mind-blowing as we did, seriously, check out Testa's book. It'll make you think, that's for sure.
And who knows, maybe one of you listening will be the one to take these ideas and make them a reality. Imagine a world where doing good for the planet is actually rewarded. That's the future Testa's painting, and honestly, I'm here for it.
That's it for this deep dive. Be sure to join us next time when we'll be exploring, well, you'll just have to wait and see. Let's just say it'll be another wild ride. Until then, keep those brains buzzing.